A few months ago, my partner and I were sitting in my living room, perusing through my YouTube For You page. It was a chill Saturday, we'd just gotten back home and wanted to relax. We weren't quite sure what we wanted to put on, so we decided YouTube might have something for us. And we were right, because the first thing we saw when YouTube pulled up was the Llamas with Hats epilogue, freshly posted over an hour ago. And I said, well, we gotta watch it. I mean, what else was I supposed to do, really? And we did. We watched it the whole way through, and I remember feeling very, very weird about it afterwards. It felt wrong. Not like the familiar FilmCow I knew or the Llamas with Hats I remembered. It felt incredibly philosophical, talking about death and forgiveness and whatnot. Where did everything change? How did we get to this point with a silly show about llamas with hats? Sure, it had its humorous moments still, but when it ended, my partner and I looked at each other and said, I'm not really sure if I like that. And I still kinda don't, but something kept tapping on my brain a little bit. What exactly didn't I like? Because it clearly had a lot of work put into it, a part of a larger narrative I felt I wasn't privy to. This led me to rewatch all of the Llamas with Hats series again, which led me to fall into a deeper, even bigger rabbit hole. Eventually I decided, hey, it's been what, 3, almost 4 years since you last made a video? Why not do a video on Llamas with Hats? I started writing down notes, watching a bunch more FilmCow videos, and then realized it wasn't enough to just talk about llamas with hats. No, this required a bit more work than that. And that, my friends, has led us here, to the top of Candy Mountain. Hi, my name is Amber. It's been a while since I posted anything on this channel, which was all the way back in 2021. My life has changed a lot since that time, and so has the world, really. There's really no good excuse as to why it's been so long, but I'm going to assume that many of you watching this video aren't subscribed to me anyway, so in a way, it won't matter to a lot of you. I do want to apologize to my subscribers though, it's been too long, but I've kind of wanted to come back here and make more stuff. I always have something to say after all. And today, I have a lot of things I want to talk about when it comes to FilmCow, so let's start with the creator themselves.
Hello, is this DC Comics?
Yes?
Great, I have a question. Where was Batman on 9/11? Where was that guy? He really let me down.
Jason Steele joined YouTube back in 2006, formerly under the username Secret Agent Bob. Their content was being posted on Newgrounds a few years before, however FilmCow is still considered to be one of the early informative YouTube animation channels. Their first video to YouTube was Charlie the Unicorn, which had come out on Newgrounds a few years prior, and is probably their most popular, or actually it's their third most popular video on their channel, sitting at 43 million views as of this video. Their videos primarily use Jason's voice for many of the characters, but there has been a consistent rotation of other people voicing other characters here and there, including their cousins Chris, Jennifer, Melanie, and Nick Alex, their partner Scuffy, who also happens to do a lot of the character and puppet designs, as well as a few animators here and there, such as Robert Benfer. I also want to make a quick note, just for clarification's sake. Jason recently revealed that they are agender in a Q&A on their FilmCow subreddit, and their partner Scuffy is also non-binary. So if I refer to either of them throughout the rest of the video, I will be using they/them pronouns. I haven't seen any specified pronouns for them to my knowledge, so I'm not quite sure what they would like to go by. If anybody knows to the contrary, please feel free to let me know down below in the comments. Of course, Charlie the Unicorn isn't the only video FilmCow is known for. Llamas with Hats, Ghost House, Shadowstone Park, and Spatula Madness are some of the most popular video series on their channel, and that's not even scratching the surface of the amount of videos that FilmCow has actually produced. After doing some counting, there are currently 51 standalone videos, 18 series, 2 movies, 3 audio theaters, and 33 other various videos that range from live action to puppets to basically anything, and that's just all the stuff that I was able to find through their Patreon. That's not to mention the fact that they have made their own music and whatnot. That's a pretty impressive portfolio of work, and a lot of which I wasn't really able to delve into until recently. I'm not going to talk about every bit of FilmCow's work, because that would take way longer than I want, and I think this video is going to be a bit longer than I had anticipated it to be anyway. Originally, I was just going to talk about llamas with hats and my feelings on the epilogue, and don't worry, I'm still going to be talking about those things. That's what led me to make this video in the first place. But I do want to talk about my favorite pieces of FilmCow's work. I think there's a lot here worth enjoying and digging into, and I think the best place to start is one of Jason's biggest and most viral series, Charlie the Unicorn.
All you have to do is put a banana in your ear.
A banana in my ear?
Put a ripe banana right into your favorite ear.
I'll admit I had a bit of a hard time finding a definitive original publishing date for Charlie the Unicorn. The best that I could really deduce is that it first came out on Newgrounds on November 26, 2005 from the channel Type Queen. It seems like this is the original channel at least, but it was a bit hard to tell. But it went big seemingly overnight, being both a featured video and daily feature in the next 2 days alone. It was then uploaded to YouTube on January 10th, 2008, and has been a rite of YouTube passage for elementary and middle school kids watching videos in their YouTube computer lab. The video follows Charlie and his two, well, not really friends, Blue and Pink, who want to take Charlie to Candy Mountain. Of course, Charlie doesn't want to go, but the two unicorns essentially strong-arm him into going with them. It's a very silly and surreal romp, Leopleurodons included. Oh, and Charlie loses his kidney at the end too. This video is probably one of the most quotable videos I've seen to date because it's just so intensely insane and random. A product of its time for sure.
No, Charlie, we found a map to Candy Mountain. Candy Mountain, Charlie. Yeah, Charlie, we're going to Candy Mountain. Come with us, Charlie. Yeah, Charlie. Shun the non-believer. Shun. Oh no! Here comes a school of poisonous fugu fish. No! Fugu! Hombre con el sombrero nos envió. Él nos conta muchas historias asombrosas. And his
Yep, so that was the scariest thing I've ever seen.
Many people have seen at least 1 or 2 videos of the Charlie the Unicorn series. There are 5 main episodes of the series, a small epilogue, 2 parodies, and a spin-off. Yes, really. The first 4 episodes were released from 2008 to 2012, with the last episode, the grand finale, being released in 2021 and ending 9 years in the making. I also want to point something out because it kind of denotes a change in the quality of FilmCow's work around this time. The first 4 episodes combined are about 20 minutes long, so roughly 5 minutes per episode. The finale episode was a little over 40 minutes long. That's quite a jump. The finale was funded through Kickstarter in 2016 with almost 4,000 backers pledging over $200,000. Of course, the finale was posted in 2021 for the public, but backers were able to see it as early as 2020. There seemed to be some issues during production, one of which being the changing length of the video during the creation period, and another being personal life issues for Jason and the rest of their crew. I unfortunately missed this Kickstarter campaign back in the day, but I was a broke college student at that point, so it kind of doesn't really matter, but it was still disappointing that I missed it anyway. But beyond a quality of animation or time length difference, I think the grand finale really highlights just how much Jason was starting to really dig into their storytelling chops, whether it was from Scuffy joining in on the creative process, or Jason's artistic tastes and talents changing, or honestly a bit of both. I feel like there's a bit more of a storytelling presence here. Don't get me wrong, Charlie the Unicorn is still very much the absurdist, LOL random, early 2000s viral video it has always been. I'm not trying to say that we still can't view it as some internet fun. However, I think it's important to digest the media we consume, rather than just swallow it whole and forget about it later. The following episodes after the original Charlie the Unicorn video start to get a little bit more interesting. Not so much that they are more serious, just that they become a little bit more world building. Also, episode 2 has probably my favorite song from the series, and I haven't been able to get it out of my head since working on this video.
All you have to do is put a banana in your ear.
A banana in my ear?
Put a ripe banana right into your favorite ear. It's true,
Says who?
so true. Once it's in your gloom, will disappear. The bad in the world is hard to hear when in your ear a banana cheers. So go and put a banana in your ear.
The episodes seem to follow the format of the original. Blue and Pink force Charlie to take part in their shenanigans. They travel to some strange place. A creature has a weird musical number. Something traumatic happens to Charlie, either directly or indirectly by Blue and Pink. And Charlie wakes up missing a part of himself. And that all culminates at the end of episode 4, where Pink and Blue try to get rid of Charlie by blowing up the moon and leaving him there. Charlie, of course, doesn't die at the end of the episode, meaning that any semblance of friendship he might have with Pink and Blue is officially severed. And that's kind of where we pick up in the epilogue. The epilogue doesn't really follow the formula set out in the first 4 episodes. It's more of a narrative now. It has more of a narrative plot. We get to meet one of my favorite characters from the series, Nyx. I think Nyx is supposed to be an echidna? Maybe? An echidna? I'm not quite sure. I love them a lot. They're very awesome. They're very soft-spoken, not quite timid, but like the standard alchemy student kind of feel. I really enjoyed them. They were really cute. I also really like the order of tutelary weasels that guard the tower in the beginning. They're so much fun. They're ridiculous. And I think their addition to the universe was really awesome. I loved how their story weaved into the Charlie the Unicorn series, kind of reshaping how you watch the series as a whole. I'm not sure how much I want to divulge about the story in case anyone hasn't seen it, but I will say that no, it hasn't abandoned the silliness that's often present in a lot of FilmCow's body of work. In fact, I'd argue that it keeps the story fresh and balances with the implication the story brings with it. And I have to say that the way that the story unfolds is engaging as fuck. And I knew the first time I watched the grand finale, I had to rewatch the other 4 episodes. I'm not going to say too much more about the finale. It's on YouTube. Definitely go watch it. But I will say this because it was a fun little bombshell for me by the end. Charlie the Unicorn is about the military-industrial complex. And no, I will not be explaining any further. Now, there is a short video that was released on Christmas Eve of 2024 that is directly Charlie the Unicorn related, titled Charlie the Unicorn Enjoys a Moment of Peace. It's not exactly clear to me when this video takes place, but I'm going to assume it's a little after the events of the finale. He's alone in it, wandering a desolate wasteland, where he comes across this old theater that seems to be pretty empty, all except for a red button in the middle of the floor. He presses it and... It's really kind of nice. It was a surprising but nice bit of closure for a depressed unicorn friend. There are, as I said, some additional videos and series that have sprouted off the Charlie the Unicorn series. There's the parody videos, which include Charlie to Unicron, which serves as a bloopers reel mixed with a gag reel. And then there's Charlie the Unicorn, which is more of a parody of Charlie the Unicorn in name alone. It's kind of funny, but it barely has anything to do with the series other than using some of the assets from the series. Then there is a spin-off series ongoing at the moment called Perfect Husbands, which follows Norwell the Weasel, the character from the finale that died with the rest of the order of tutelary weasels, and his husband, the Ensouled Coat. It appears that the two are in some sort of limbo dimension because Norwell is canonically dead, and they both know, but they can't seem to leave wherever this weird and isolated world is. It's kind of fun, the kind of vibe I really enjoy from FilmCow's work. I'd recommend giving it a watch too. There's only 3 episodes right now. I'm hoping we get some more soon. And of course, Charlie the Unicorn is only scratching the surface of FilmCow's catalog. I think we're ready to move on to another one of my favorites.
Well, this is me, my cool horse form now destroyed forever.
It certainly looks like you were murdered.
Aw, really? Well, that probably sucked. Why can't I remember it?
The dead don't retain the memories of their final 5 to 10 minutes of life. I have no idea why, but that always seems to be the case.
Weird.
This one appears to be under the radar compared to the other series, and to be fair, I only recently binge-watched the full series. Shadow Park was first released in March of 2018, so it's a more recent addition to the FilmCow videography, sitting at over 900,000 views. It consists of roughly 3 seasons so far, with the first episode of the 3rd season titled Shadowstone Park and Beyond being released in June of 2024. The first season consists of 3 short episodes, followed by a 10-episode long season 2. The story centers around Lark the cat and Pecan the pelican, a pair of friends who are determined to find out what's causing the sudden uptick of deaths in Shadowstone Park. Lark is able to see the spirits of the dead and communicate with them, many of whom ask how they died. Apparently, the dead can remember everything except the last 5 or 10 minutes of their lives, offering no help in order to solve the mystery. The first victim, Gloves the horse, is found slashed to death in the park, and Lark offers to find out how he was killed. They determine the wounds were caused by a bird and go to consult Darius, leader of the birds, about birds who have been acting strangely. Darius points to Crush, a bird who's been slowly going insane. They find her and tell her she has to leave the park for good. From here, the story gets a bit stranger, with many of the dead animals' bodies becoming zombified husks, their souls each asking for closure before they pass on. By the end of season 1, Darius passes on, leading Lark and Pecan to learn that Darius may have known more about circumstances behind the mysterious murders in the park, which also seems related to the large pillar-like rock that sticks out of the ground at the edge of the park, known as Shadowstone. We see that the outside of the park is a desolate wasteland, with parks similar to Shadowstone isolated throughout. Humanity is long dead, leaving the animals to wander. Darius is replaced by Zoot, who is now Queen of the Birds, and she also tries to aid Lark and Pecan in their search for answers. This begins Season 2, Fall of Shadowstone Park, released in 2022, where we meet characters like Ava, a distrustful and very suspicious penguin who looks like the penguin from Surf's Up. Maybe that's not really a reference to Surf's Up, but in my mind it's funnier if she is. There's Baggy, the old tortoise who tentatively befriends Ava, and there's Nil, who's also been a character since Season 1, but he becomes an even more ominous presence in the series. He looks a lot like a cicada, but I'm not entirely sure, and he also refers to himself as a god whose words shape the world. A fascinating character that I always enjoyed when he showed up. My favorite episode in both Season 2 and the overall series itself would have to be Episode 8, titled, Can You Understand Me? It's chilling and it's surreal, and it made the sinister nature of the whole series spiral into something very impressive. Again, as with Charlie the Unicorn, I don't want to give a lot of stuff away because I do want people to go and watch the series if you haven't already. If I had to describe it, it feels like a post-apocalyptic version of Twin Peaks. And I really appreciated it for all it has to offer. I mean, one of the funniest scenes I've ever seen in the series is also very much the most disturbing part of the story.
Fellow humans of Earth, do not be afraid. The United States is here. Do not be afraid. The United States is here.
Take from that what you will. I think that should tell you everything you need to know about the series. I am kind of curious how Season 3 will go, considering how we reached the climax in Season 2, but it looks maybe like there's more there than we realized, shockingly enough. So I'm looking forward to that, and I really hope more people watch this series because it feels more like a planned and more thought out narrative work on FilmCow's part. Maybe this is a series Jason would like to get picked up by a studio. But with the state of Main Street entertainment, maybe it's best that this remains an independent venture.
Man, I need to know if you understand, man.
Understand what?
The history and development of string theory, man.
Huh?
Oh, 'cause in 1666 an apple fell on Newton's head. Our modern view of gravity from this event was bred.
That's right, baby. We're going right back into old FilmCow stuff, and I am a bit ashamed to say, I never really watched any of the Spatula Madness videos back in the day, because it is quite funny. Originally released in 2012, the first episode, Spatula Madness Open Scene, has received over 600,000 views. According to Jason, this is an opening from a feature-length movie I attempted to make based on the short back in 2006. there's also a link that goes back to an old blog post that is no longer active. So naturally, I plugged it into the Wayback Machine because I was curious as to why this was originally made and how it never became a movie like they wanted to originally. And what I found was interesting. On October 6th, 2012, Jason posted the blog entry regarding the Spatula Madness movie, which details the origin of the film.
In early 2006, I began work on the feature-length animated movie called Spatula Madness, about a spatula named Edward who worked at an accounting firm turned militia. I began this project largely because of the success of my friend Robert Benfer's movie, Clay World Off the Table. I'd recently lost both my job and everything I owned to Hurricane Katrina, so my options at this point were either get a job at Best Buy or move back into my mom's house to work on something I could hopefully eventually sell. There were many things I didn't know how to do when I started that project. I didn't know how to draw backgrounds. I didn't know how to animate anything that wasn't stupidly simple. I didn't know how to write songs. I didn't know how to voice act, and I certainly didn't know how to write a feature-length project. As such, the 3 or 4 months I thought I could get the movie done in quickly turned into over a year, and I'm still only halfway done. During that time, something else happened. My web cartoon started to take off in a major way. Thanks to the success of Charlie the Unicorn, I was suddenly making a living doing short films for the internet, and that began to take up a bulk of my time. Not only that, but most of the work I had completed for Spatula Madness now looked amateurish in comparison to my more recent projects. I went back and redrew and animated things, but the more work I put in, the more work I ended up making for myself. Eventually, I stopped working on the project entirely. Instead of simply tossing the project away, I've decided to go ahead and release the good stuff. I'll occasionally be uploading scenes from the movie to YouTube/FilmCow, the ones that make sense as standalone pieces, and everything else will either be posted here on the blog or as extras of some future DVD.
I'm very curious to know how the full film looked, but I am glad we got the handful of scenes we received. The first video, obviously titled Opening Scene, reveals the first 5 minutes, which starts with a fun opening number about accounting. That's definitely the most formative thing about the short, and establishing Edward as the main character. Not much to say, really. A lot of the short episodes are like that for a while. The second episode, A Night of Spatula Madness, consists of Edward being strong-armed by a homeless man into looking at dead animal art and listening to a rather informative song about string theory. Seriously, as someone who doesn't really know about string theory all that much, I learned some stuff and now kind of want to look more into it. Thanks, Jason. In the third, he's lost at sea, and that's really all I can say about that one. There's not much else to it. It's not until you get to episode 5, Perfect Business, when there's actually a cohesive narrative being told. From this episode, we learn some pretty important business stuff, such as hexagons are the perfect business shape, 6 sides to every problem, and 6 solutions to every side, 36 business solutions to every business. If you understand that, you will be the employee of the month. There's about a 6-year gap between Perfect Business in 2017 and the Miller account in 2023, which follows that storyline of the accounting firm and its many ventures. We even get a name for the company, Jerry, spelled J-E-R-E, motto, the company that does. Going from framing one of its employees for killing a client, to trying to recruit a near-dead homeless man off the street, to traveling through dimensions with a CEO that can force information out of its employees with strings, we get to see just what kind of business Jerry really is, and its otherworldly influence. Hits a little too close to home with the episode framing, too. I'll leave y'all to watch that one. Honestly, if Jason were to make a Kickstarter campaign to create a more elaborate series on Spatula Madness, or even a fully realized film, I think that would be kind of neat. The plot would work, and I'd be interested to see more of the dark side of Jerry. And, speaking of movies, I want to talk about one of the movies FilmCow has created, and probably one of the best and dumbest films I have ever seen.
Have you seen any Germans? I am the Germans. Ah, shit, no way. My name is Sabina. I'm an engineer. Sabrina? Sabina. Oh, okay. Ever since I was the tiniest German, I've had a dream to build the world's first space elevator. Oh, shit, you're the Germans and the NASA thief.
Detective Heart of America was the first FilmCow project ever funded through Kickstarter, surpassing its funding goal in December of 2013, with 1,621 members pledging over $43,000. The film was then published on YouTube on August 16th, 2015. I never knew that FilmCow ever made one movie, let alone 2. Granted, Detective Heart of America is the only one I've seen thus far, but they also made Nick the feature film, which is mostly a live-action movie. Detective Heart of America is primarily composed of puppets, static items I'm presuming that were either found around the house, in a thrift store, or at a garage sale that were used as characters. And it's honestly kind of a fun and very good way to portray those characters. The story follows America's greatest eagle statue detective named Detective Heart of America as he tries to solve the biggest case yet, find out who is buying America from China, with Bitcoin. This adventure goes all over the place, including America becoming not America, little German children making a space elevator, an old bottle of Surge flavoring, the Twin Towers, the Holiday Inn Express, and Merman Jesus. Genuinely, this movie is such a good time. It's under 90 minutes, makes great use of physical props, limited locations, a budget of over $43,000, and friends and family. And Tom Hanks. He's not even in here. Spoiler alert. It would also appear that every 4th of July, FilmCow does a live stream playing Detective Heart of America on loop, which I might have to join in sometime, because that's amazing. And, according to the FilmCow wiki, Tom Hanks, who is mentioned in the opening credits, played a major role, but unfortunately disappeared when America was erased. So that answers my question, I guess. I think my favorite part of the film is the animated segment about Bitcoin.
Bitcoin and you. Why you should be using the only truly free currency. Greetings, financial wizards, industry leaders, and curious spectators, and welcome to the future. Yes, we're living in a high-tech cyber world where just about everything is digital. The cinema has gone digital, radio is digital, why even love is digital. So then why, with the whole world going digital, are we still using dirty, crazy, non-digital government money? That dollar bill in your pocket? A Nazi probably touched that right after jerking off. Deposit that dollar in your bank account? It's still floating out there in the world somewhere. Your dollar covered in Nazi boner germs. Luckily, the world of tomorrow has finally become today, so there's another way to spend and save money without the involvement of the government or the Nazis. Bitcoin is that way. Created in 2009 by a mysterious programmer only known by an anonymous pseudonym, Bitcoin is a purely digital currency that uses complicated cryptographic science to generate lots of super hard math problems. These math problems are converted by computers around the world into seemingly random strings of numbers that some people have agreed to pretend stands for a highly volatile potential sum of money. Solving these math problems is called mining, and you can do it right at home on your very own personal computer, although the electrical cost of calculating one Bitcoin could actually be higher than the value of that Bitcoin. But don't worry, the Bitcoin market is bubbling up rapidly, as you'll be making a healthy profit in some unknown amount of time. You see, Bitcoins aren't backed by any real-world items, such as gold or by a governing body like the Federal Reserve, so the value of a Bitcoin is entirely bubble-based. But what a bubble it can be! Without the nuisance of regulation or real-world value, a single Bitcoin could be worth anything from negative infinity to infinity billions of dollars. I imagine if it reaches even half of that. So what can you buy with a Bitcoin? Well, it's true that the untraceable nature of Bitcoins has meant that a substantial part of the Bitcoin market has been used for heroin, methamphetamines, child pornography, and assassination contracts. But you can also spend your Bitcoins on gambling sites and Holiday Inn Express Brooklyn, where you'll get a complimentary buffet breakfast. Yum! So whether you're a libertarian or just want to spend your money like one, consider converting your wallet to a Bitcoin wallet. Who knows how much it'll be worth tomorrow? It could be anything.
Jason has a really good way of displaying information in both a helpful and funny way, and I think that's a great talent to have. I personally hate Bitcoin, but I felt I had a bit more of an understanding. Plus, it definitely makes fun of Bitcoin bros and cryptocurrency, which I'm always down for. Another thing that really grasped me as well was the use of physical items as characters. Many times, films like this feel very amateur and can either be a bit too messy for me to enjoy, or just okay. But this felt very solid as a film. It gave me a similar vibe to things like Shrek Retold or the SpongeBob SquarePants movie Rehydrated, if that makes sense. The script was impeccable, and the way these characters were portrayed and animated was really creative. Really well done. It's clear to see the effort FilmCow put into it, and I hope we get more films from them. The good news is that you can buy this film on DVD, and wouldn't you know it, that's just what I did. FilmCow has an Etsy where you can buy a number of their books, CDs, and DVDs, and it's only $10. Who can say no to owning a physical copy of absolutely peak cinema?
Hello, Jim.
Hello, Garfield.
It's been a while. You never seem to be alone when I'm around.
I'll admit, I don't really listen to a lot of audio theater. I think the closest I've come to that is the Magnus Archives podcast, and that was a lot of fun. But Never Monday was a fun little romp into that genre of entertainment, and I also didn't know that FilmCow delved into audio theater either. Released in November of 2024, Never Monday is a story about Jim Davis, the creator of Garfield. It takes place in 1997 while Jim is in the middle of a divorce and a period of feeling empty and devoid of any meaning. He's lost his love for the Garfield franchise, it would seem. And then we learn that Garfield is, in fact, a sinister demon creature with whom Jim has devised a 20-year contract with. Jim gains his fortune in return for giving Garfield worldwide fame. And they are nearly at the end of that contract. Feeling unsatisfied with his status, his wealth, and his life, he decides to extend that contract with Garfield. And Garfield seems to agree, but he has his own terms, in order to seal the new contract. This 40-minute audio theater story was quite a treat to listen to, and I absolutely loved the twist ending. I would never have guessed it in a million years, and I definitely encourage people to listen to it. If that description I gave you earlier wasn't enough to draw you in, I think this clip might just entice you.
There's not much that I want in this world, Jim. I just want the machine to run smoothly.
The machine?
I want people to laugh. I want people to eat lasagna. I want people to fear and revile Mondays. All of these things I have accomplished.
So what do you want from me?
I want you to take me somewhere.
Okay, I can do that.
I want you to take me somewhere very specific at a very specific time.
Uh-huh. And then?
That's it.
I don't understand.
And I'm not going to explain it. Well, that's what I want. And if you do this for me, I'll extend our deal indefinitely.
Indefinitely?
This comic strip of yours will survive even the death of the newspaper business itself.
What's the catch, Garfield?
Was there a catch before?
I don't know.
Well, think it over, Jim. But think quickly. If your answer is yes, I want you on a plane tomorrow.
Okay, all right. I'll think it over.
And get some sleep. After all, you've got an important meeting in the morning.
I remember putting this on while playing Minecraft one day, and I was so engrossed in it. I loved it. I will definitely have to listen to the other two audio theaters FilmCow has created. It was both so absurd and comical, yet upsetting, which is really FilmCow's bread and butter. Finally, I want to talk about one more installment in the FilmCow filmography, the real reason this video was made in the first place, and perhaps a more controversial chapter. That's right, we're finally talking about Llamas with Hats.
Carl, you've tracked mud all over the carpet.
Now that right there is a mess.
I just had it cleaned yesterday, Carl.
I'm not responsible for this. I've been jamming on the saxophone all morning.
They're clearly your hoof prints, Carl.
Then there is an imposter on the loose.
They lead directly to you.
Normally, I would have talked about Llamas with Hats way earlier, as it is almost as popular, if not just as popular, as Charlie the Unicorn. But I felt it was important to go through a number of other projects Jason has created in order to give some context behind my feelings about this series, and I have a lot of them. Llamas with Hats was originally published February 19, 2009, with a simple caption, "All the fun of llamas, but with the added comfort of hats." And it's true, their hats are very dapper. On February 19th, 2024, Jason posted a video celebrating the 15th anniversary of Llamas with Hats, where they went into a little depth about the making of the famous video back in 2009, stating,
In 2005, I moved to New Orleans to start a video production company with a friend of mine. His uncle ran a photography art print shop in the area, and I was asked if I had any ideas for photo series that they could sell prints of. I suggested Llamas with Hats. We'd partner with a llama farm and take portraits of various llamas wearing hats. My idea was vetoed absolutely. And after a few months later, Hurricane Katrina washed all of our plans away. Years went by, and then on February 10th, 2009, I was headed to Panera Bread with my cousin Chris Alex for lunch. We used to meet up once a week, grab lunch, and think about what videos we wanted to do for YouTube. As Chris was driving, I had a sudden flashback to my Llamas with Hats photo series idea. I began to imagine a cartoon with the same title. By the time we pulled into the Panera Bread parking lot, the entire video was looping in my head. That night, we recorded the voices for the cartoon in my closet. The sound was better in there.
The series revolves around two llama friends, roommates, possibly lovers, named Paul and Carl. Carl is a bit of a... well, he's not a bit of anything. Carl is a dangerous sociopath with a long history of violence, his words verbatim. And unfortunately, Paul is always discovering his many crimes and suffering all the more for it. The first episode is simple enough. Paul notices a human man dead in their living room with no hands, and asks Carl what happened. Through a string of lies and jokes, we soon learn that Carl stabbed him 37 times in the chest, then ate his hands. Paul is in distress, Carl offers no real apology, the video ends. And as we get into the next several episodes, this bit seems to repeat itself in more nasty and horrible ways. To list off Carl's many crimes would take a bit, but it would go as follows. Sinking a cruise ship during this time, he shot a harpoon into the captain's face, headbutted children off the side of the ship, made out with the ice sculptures, murdered the elderly couple from 2B, and sank all the other lifeboats. overthrows a South American government, threw the resistance leader into a giant fan after he tried to stop Carl from throwing other people into the giant fan, swallowed the bartender at the hotel he and Paul were staying at, and filled their suitcases with orphan meat to build a meat dragon. Tracked mud all over the carpet in their apartment, shortly followed by a nuclear fallout that he created. The nuclear blast cooked the faces that Carl ripped off his victims, their faces floating in on balloons. Opened a rift in space-time in order to collect several baby hands. Created a conveyor belt in the middle of their apartment to move ground-up human meat, gaslighting Paul about it, admitted to killing Mrs. Bigsby for not keeping up with her weeding, plus meat dragon. Making a hand chair with the faces of city council members, their bodies are floating in a blood canal. Sent a bleeding and screaming piano to Paul after he leaves, using Paul's identity to commit crimes. Killed a person and chopped up their body. Again. Created a gore pit. Ate all of the hands. All meat creatures were made, unleashed, and then also eaten. He also formed a blood vortex in Paris. Violates Paul's restraining order. And that's just what I could gather from the original 12 episodes. Mind you, Paul parts ways with Carl about halfway through the series, which makes sense when you've got a sociopath for a roommate. But it's definitely interesting to see the depths in which Carl's actions plunge the series deeper and deeper into a dark spiral of madness. Just how absorbed we are in Carl's journey that we're all in for a shock when we realize that Paul died sometime before the end of the series. Yes, this is a series I'm going to spoil. Sorry. If you want to watch the series all the way through, feel free to do so and then come back. No hard feelings. But yes, Paul dies, and we don't really get confirmation of that until the very last episode. That's when it all hits Carl. Not so much that he's sorry for what he did, but that the one person he wanted, loved, and depended on was gone for good. With that, Carl jumps off a bridge and into the water below. As I stated in the intro of this video, I wasn't quite sure where the pivot point came in the series for it to take such an emotional and philosophical turn. It feels like there was a basic formula where it was kind of absurdist and morbid comedy, so where did this change come from? I was going through a Q&A post on the FilmCow subreddit and found something that might help. User Red Hawk Director asked, what caused you to take the Llamas with Hats series in the direction that you did, from hilariously morbid to actually somewhat sad? In response, Jason said,
originally, there was only going to be 5 episodes. But after the 4th one came out, everyone guessed what the 5th one would be. Carl isn't funny if he can't surprise you. My partner Scuffy disliked the series and suggested the Llamas should just blow up. This sparked the idea for a legitimately surprising 5th episode. Carl's depressing descent into madness and eventual suicide. The only way to end Llamas with Hats in a legitimately funny way was to end it as sadly as possible.
When asked how they were originally going to end the series before they changed anything, Jason said,
they were going to be on the moon with an exploded Earth behind them.
That would explain a lot. And yes, that is a good way to pivot the story. It was interesting to see Carl's mind fall into insanity, and the world around him crumble because of it. It gave both Paul and Carl more character depth, while also staying true to the dark humor of the original. And in all honesty, I think the 12th episode was the best ending Llamas with Hats could have gotten. Then, about 9 years after the 12th episode came out, Jason created a Kickstarter for the Llamas with Hats epilogue. The project had 4,745 backers and received over $250,000, which is insane. I hadn't known about this at the time. FilmCow hadn't been on my radar for a few years, so instead, I found out that there was a new Llamas with Hats episode, the way many other people did, by it showing up on my For You page on YouTube. By the way, for the record, I want to point out that I am pissed that I missed this Kickstarter because a few of the rewards were a Kickstarter exclusive zine and Blu-ray release of the whole series plus bonus features. Jason, if you're listening by some miracle, please, I'm begging you, on my hands and knees. I don't know how much money you'd want, but please let me buy the Blu-ray. Please. If I had known about the Kickstarter, I would have backed it. Please, I am being so serious. I will buy an extra copy off of you if you have one. Admittedly, when I watched the epilogue, I could barely remember much of the series to begin with, so watching it with the knowledge I had right off the dome, I kinda wasn't a fan of it. It seemed out of line with how I remembered the original, and I was very confused. How had a dark comedy about 2 llamas wearing hats become something so philosophical? So I sat down and rewatched the series, which then led me to rewatching some of Jason's other work and discovering more stuff in FilmCow's portfolio. And, well, I guess I can say this. I don't dislike the epilogue because it doesn't fall in line with the original storyline. Because it actually does. It matches the tone, has some really interesting moments, and really shows off FilmCow's creative chops. But I've determined that I didn't like it for a different reason. I don't think it was necessary. I feel that it beats the concept of Carl's character into the ground. Yes, we know he's a sociopath, that he isn't worthy of forgiveness, that really wasn't going to change Carl too much. Sure, He has a bit of a realization at the end that Paul should stay away from him and that he should move on. It's a bit sad, and honestly, it has good emotional beats. But I feel that we got that in episode 12. It was so tragic, these things could have been surmised by just the ending. When doing research for this video, I had wondered if anyone else felt similar to how I felt. And sure enough, there was a post by user TheRed779 who said, "Is it just me, or did the finale suck? It felt like nothing. No real ending. It felt like I just watched someone prepare, cook, and serve a nothing burger, and I ate it. I ate it and felt nothing, but my stomach continued to grow empty. And that's it. He's a tree. That's all. The end. He eats pipe meat, and that's it." To which Jason replied,
"Sorry you didn't like the epilogue. This was intentionally not a plot or lore-heavy narrative. It was an exploration of two overlapping themes. One textual, and the other metatextual. Textual theme is abusive relationships, represented by Carl coming to understand the nature of his relationship with Paul and the fundamental irreparability of it. The metatextual theme is the audience's desire for redemption of even the irredeemable, represented by the epilogue itself as a response to the reactions people had to Carl's death. The epilogue opens with a scene that takes place before the first episode. It is the first time Paul has come face to face with Carl's true nature, and it won't be the last. Carl makes a promise we know is an empty one. He will never again act violently. He will never again hurt Paul. This scene is presented on a cracked phone, which is slid on screen through a trail of blood. This is the metatextual element. The phone represents one of the many viewers of the original series who have since died to real-world violence. We are about to watch the emotional journey of a killer, and be asked to react emotionally to his pain. But there are many who will never see this journey, because they were murdered in real life by a real-life Carl. What use is this sort of story to them? I'm not going to go over every scene, as I think it's better for people to come up with their own interpretations and theories, positive or negative, but I'll mention one more thing to help solidify the thesis I was going for. When Carl eats the tube meat for the second time and begins to dance, he is dancing a traditional 12-step Greek dance known as the hasapiko. It is the butcher's dance. Carl is a butcher who celebrates and revels in his butchery. It is part of himself that he's seemingly both unwilling and unable to change. Then we fall into the metatextual elements. The faces of his victims, provided by the actual viewers, arrive and dance along with him as they scream in fear and torment. It is I, the writer and animator, who is making Carl dance. It is I who makes Carl both irredeemable and empathetic. Why should I be surprised, or worse, critical, when the audience reaction are the reactions demanded by the work itself? This sort of storytelling is not going to appeal to everyone, and I'm too close to the work to give any sort of objective judgment on how successful I've been at accomplishing what I set out to accomplish. But I put as much labor, thought, and passion into the project as I could. And if you didn't like it, I hope you find something to like more in my next project.
Do I think the ending should have never been made? I mean, I don't think it was necessary, but it was certainly an interesting watch. I think this added context Jason gives for some of the scenes and the overall why the epilogue was created in the first place was great, though, and it gives me more to chew on as a viewer. So while I'm not his biggest fan, I do respect the epilogue for what it does. Who knows? Maybe I'll change my mind later. I have that happen a lot with the media that I enjoy. There is more Llamas with Hats content out there to enjoy, though. On June 22nd, 2023, FilmCow uploaded a video called Llamas with Hats 1-12, recut for brand conscientiousness. The video explains that YouTube had marked the series as 18+ and demonetizing it. This video, in response to this decision, was made to make Llamas with Hats more advertiser-friendly, censoring violent and unprofessional language and situations, turning it into something far more disturbing. And believe it or not, the video is the exact same length as the original run of Llamas with Hats episode 1-12 video compilation. It is absolutely hilarious and absurd, and I would recommend watching it if you haven't already. There is also a book for sale on the FilmCow store called Llamas with Hats Babies. I was pretty skeptical about getting it for this video, but someone on Reddit claimed that it added some nice insight to Paul's character after the end of the series. So I bought it, as well as the CD soundtrack for Charlie the Unicorn, and read through it, and I can confirm that it does, in fact, give Paul a bit of, well, not closure, but we as the audience get to know what happened to him after all that's happened. It starts out with baby Paul waking up in a crib, scared by a creaking sound. He goes out looking for Carl to see if he is the cause of the noise, when he encounters a box. Under the box is a severed arm and Carl, baby Carl to be exact. It's a similar scenario to what we've seen before. Carl tries to play off the severed arm before he admits to eating them. Paul is upset and traumatized by the whole thing. Eventually a staircase forms, made entirely out of Carl's shit, which is really gross. and they climb to the top where heaven is waiting for them, or what baby Carl assumes is heaven. As the two of them walk through Heaven's Gate, they are greeted by a one-eyed purple creature, who only addresses Paul. This confuses the two babies, to which the creature does a quick modulation, where we see Paul alone, as a full-grown adult once again. The creature asks if Paul is feeling any better. Paul asks where he is and where Carl is, to which the creature says they're not the one to answer those questions, and states they'll schedule Paul for some additional trauma therapy. It's clear that this is some form of afterlife, and this is shortly after Paul dies in the main story. The creature says that they have to leave, as they are dealing with a lot of emergencies, which, if I had to hazard a guess, are a result of Carl murdering the entire world, and that they will turn Paul into something more relaxing until they are able to give Paul the attention he needs. Paul asks to turn into the moon, saying, "It's big and consistent and has a lovely glow." So the creature does what Paul asks and turns him into the moon. As the moon, Paul begins to spiral into his own thoughts. Maybe this was a mistake. It's hard to believe in myself as the moon. Nothing hurts the moon. Asteroids slam into its surface, but that just adds to its texture. I'm nothing like that. I'm not the moon. Everything hurts me. There's nothing I can do to stop it. I'm just a big baby. Paul begins to regress again while these thoughts occur, a diaper forming on the moon to symbolize this regression. The creature returns, realizing just how bad Paul's mental state is, and takes him along on their rounds until they can get Paul full-time support. While on the rounds, Paul and the creature come across a puddle named Tina, who notices Paul in the shape of the moon. She says she loves the moon, thanking him for coming to visit. In her excitement, her puddle becomes a vast ocean due to Paul's tidal force. Paul, coming out of his baby regression, seems content. This is, of course, in contrast to Carl turning into a tree, gazing up at the moon at the end of the epilogue. And I gotta say, I love this bit quite a lot. I love that it took the focus away from Carl, giving us a glimmer of hope that Paul can finally find peace. If you want, you can still buy this on the FilmCow store. It's really nice.
My first kiss was with Batman on 9/11? Oh, wait! I know where Batman was on 9/11. He was sitting in my bedroom playing PS2.
There's so much more stuff in FilmCow's library that I couldn't possibly cover it all. So many funny short films, smaller series, a few more audio theaters, and another movie, all of which would have made this video way longer. But that's what I like about making videos like this. There's definitely a large fan base who has watched FilmCow grow over the years, but there are still so many people who've maybe seen one or two videos that they've made that I think it's fun to give people more options by a creator. FilmCow has a very impressive catalog, one that kind of has me envious as an artist and a creator. I feel like I've learned more about Jason as well, which is kind of cool and gives me a lot more context to their work. Jason, Scuffy, Chris, they've been creating for years, since a very early age from the sound of it. Also, while doing this video, I had always wondered why Jason never got picked up by a studio like Adult Swim or something along those lines. From the way their stories are created and the content they produce, I'd think it's up their alley, and Jason confirms that they've gone to studios before.
I've pitched TV stuff a few times, but with no success. I don't think it's impossible I could land a TV show, but pitching requires significantly more time than I've ever really been willing to put into it. Given how the industry has treated most animators, I don't think I made the wrong choice. Success stories are the minority. The vast majority leave the industry with no money and no ownership over anything they've ever worked on. I've been able to maintain a career for almost 2 decades now, specifically because I still own my own work. As bad as YouTube is as a platform for animators, they own nothing of what I produce.
And it's true, the state of mainstream animation, mainstream entertainment as a whole, is a bit fucked at the moment. Even before COVID, animators, artists, screenwriters, nearly all essential jobs and roles in the film and creative industry have been underpaid, underappreciated, and worked to the point of exhaustion and burnout. But bigger companies are canceling shows left and right, taking shows and movies they already have and tucking them away for tax purposes, or hosting them solely on streaming platforms, only then to cancel them after a season or two. Hollywood is rotted, and we need to start pulling away from it. It's disheartening. I'm a creative myself off of YouTube. My job recently laid me off, and even before then, with the rise of AI and the rise of company profits but barely any pay for employees, it's been a bit of a struggle. So I really respect Jason keeping FilmCow an independent venture. It seems to be working out well for them, and I love that they're still creating. But that doesn't mean that the road is smooth for them. When asked about the other collaborators and voice actors for videos, Jason said,
Chris used to work on FilmCow stuff full-time, but when YouTube revenue started to dry up, he had to find more stable work. Jennifer does occasional voice acting on the cartoons, but has always had a 9-to-5 job. Nick has had a day job as well, and recently moved out of state. I miss Nick.
This leads me to my next point. If you have a creator you love on any platform, and they have a Patreon, a Ko-Fi, anything like that, please go support them the best that you can. Every time I do research for things like this video, I usually subscribe to the creator's Patreon. It both helps me find more information for my research, gives me some really cool stuff like video downloads, art, music, or just some good behind the scenes on my favorite projects. Plus, I'm giving them the money to keep creating. So if you can, and you want to follow Jason and their team, please consider joining the FilmCow Patreon, and maybe buy their books and movies from their Etsy store. Now more than ever, we need to be supporting independent creators. Even $1 is good enough if you ask me. With that, there's really not much more to say. I very much enjoyed going down this rabbit hole, reconnecting with the media I used to watch when I was younger, and getting a better appreciation for it as an adult. I hope to make more of these videos. I already have a few in mind. I'll try not to be gone for 3 years this time, but things are crazy right now, so I make no promises. Until then, take care everyone. Bye.
Well, you can ignore this plea, that's fine with me. But one day you'll see that my words are true. But if you find that you agree, I guarantee that you will soon be feeling the love too. Cause swordfishes love you, jellyfishes love you, starfishes I wanna be with you forever. You know it's true. Catfishes love you, cottonfishes love you, blowfish starfish love me in the ocean blue.